Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome back to USA Global TV and Radio, where today's show is Authentic Achievements. Authentic Achievements has been going for probably about 3.5 years now and was designed by myself on a separate platform to really start to have a place to share people's journey, people's lived experience, and through sharing that lived experience, hopefully inspire other people who are facing similar situations to find ways that they can overcome it. So that's why we set the show up. And then I had the absolute privilege of being able to bring it over to USA Global TV and Radio and work with the fabulous Dr. Jacqueline and the rest of the team. So we would love you guys to get more involved, and you can find out more about what we're doing here at usaglobaltv.com. But today's episode is a very special one. I am absolutely delighted to be joined by the fabulous Ingeborg Mooiweer, who's going to share with us her journey. So without further ado, Ingeborg, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really great.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to our conversation. I know it's going to be insightful as always, but I know we can get really stuck in quite quickly. Before we do that, I'm just going to share a little bit more about you with the audience who haven't had the opportunity to meet you yet. So let me share. So Ingeborg is an international pioneer in transformation. Her journey from adversity to empowerment shapes her mission to change lives worldwide. She was raised in Holland amidst uncertainty and emotional turmoil. She developed resilience from a young age, navigating a challenging environment marked by parental divorce and psychological abuse. Leaving home at 16, she pursued a degree in hotel management and later thrived in London's luxury hotel industry. Balancing motherhood with a successful corporate career is where she discovered her true calling, healing others' innermost traumas. Now a renowned business and personal relationship alchemist, Ingeborg guides individuals and organizations towards transformative experiences, fostering trust and collaboration. Wow, that's quite a journey and quite a mission. Could you share with us a little bit more about that? Because there's so much packed into just that brief introduction.
Yeah, sure. It is quite a journey. I grew up with a narcissistic mother, and I really had to leave home at 16, as you said, because it wasn't bearable anymore. And then I was still in a high school. I finished my high school. I went to study. I took some therapy myself because it had been really hard. Had been traumatized because of it, and it took me quite a long time to get, how I am now or where I'm now. But in that time, I felt the urge and the need to help others with what I've been through and everything what came from it. Because it's one thing to growing up with a mother who's narcissistic, but it does so much with your identity, with your self-esteem, with your self-worth, how you perceive yourself. It's everything. It's relationship. It's being codependent. yeah, boundaries, everything. So it's a lot. I was always surviving and not living. So I needed to learn to live as well, and learn those things what you normally learn at home. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I can't begin to imagine how awful that must have been, because I know, from what I understand, we build our belief system, don't we? We build it at the age of 7, and we enforce it at the age of 14, and we embed it at the age of 21. And if we don't go back and re-look at that, it inadvertently drives the bus, doesn't it? It drives all the decisions we make. And yeah, I often liken it to kind of like your operating system. I'm 51, so if I hadn't looked at mine since I was 21, that's 30 years old. I mean, that's got some bugs in there that need fixing. And you wouldn't let your phone or your computer run on 30-year-old software, would you? So we do have to go in and look at actually how can we change those beliefs that are no longer serving us. But how do people get to that first piece where they realize that actually the beliefs that they're holding are what's holding them back?
Yeah, well, usually you find that you have a lot of problems, like sort of repeating patterns. I always say, like, you get in the same loop, and then you do the same thing, like hoping that it would be different. What people tend to do is start overthinking, a lot of thinking. They think they can think themselves out of the problems, which you can't. Because it's like an old paper. You read the same thing. It's the same beliefs, what you said. It's the same thing. You try to think yourself out of it, and you can't. So that's what usually happens. Like, you're attracting the same kind of partner, which doesn't work, or you have trouble in work, or in friendships, or things like that, or still trouble with your family. And then people start to realize, but what they tend to do is buying books, reading books, listening to podcasts. And that does help, obviously, to give you insights. But the thing is, that's not enough. It's not enough to just know what the problem is, or their thoughts about the problem, but you have to go inside. There's a deep layer, like the inner child work and the pain and the wound, what I call it. That's where the sort of the real juice is, because that's where the change is. That's where the transformation is. You have to go to that part.
Yeah, I think that's the part that, that journeying inward, it's hard, isn't it? It takes a lot of courage, because we're all afraid of what we're going to find there. It's like I struggled terribly with probably with imposter syndrome and a really low self-opinion of myself. And I had to go I did a lot of the journey outward first. So how many books could I read? To your point, how many podcasts could I listen to? How much research could I do? And it didn't really change until I went inward. And for me, one of the challenges of going inward was I didn't want to feel disloyal. I think that's a big problem. I didn't want to feel disloyal, that actually, because I believe that in the main, unless obviously they're narcissistic, in the main, people's intentions are honorable.
Yeah.
Doesn't change the impact. And once I realized that actually I didn't need to blame myself or anybody else. It wasn't their fault that they did it because they didn't mean to, and it wasn't my fault that I made it mean something because I didn't mean to. So it was innocently created, but now it was okay to kind of dismantle that. That for me personally really helped, because I struggled to get really deep, because I had that fear of disloyalty, because I was very lucky. I had lovely parents and a lovely family. That didn't mean to say nobody's perfect. You can still create a inner script that doesn't do you any good, that doesn't set healthy boundaries, that doesn't allow you to realize that actually other people's happiness is not your responsibility. Your happiness is your responsibility. And that doesn't mean to say you become self-centered and you're mean to people, but it means that actually you can't lose yourself in trying to be what others need you to be. And I think for me that that was kind of towards the end of my journey, but going through those steps to go inward was, I liken it a little bit to, when you go on holiday and the kids have told you that the water's really warm and it's not really. You dip your toe in and then maybe your foot, and then you come back out and you're juggling around, and it takes effort, doesn't it, to get in, to really go and look at yourself. So if people listening and watching right now are in that place where they're at the water's edge and they can't work out what's the next step, what advice could you give them on how they move forward?
Well, in general, I know it to be true that it's really hard to do this journey if you really want to go to the inner child and the wound and everything on your own. Because what happens is that it needs to be safe. Now, what you said, like standing on the side of the water and dipping your toe in, there's a mechanism in people as well that you don't want to go to pain, you want to go from pain to pleasure. So that kicks in once you start doing it yourself. Then the loyalty, what you said about, that is a part of people's problem as well, doing it on your own, because they can't really see there's an end sort of, it's end your parents had the best intentions and you are suffering. It's not one or the other. And that's the sort of part of the child. You think, oh, I can't be disloyal, so I'll have to take it and I'll suffer on my own. So there are a few things happening once you want to go inside and do it yourself. So you need someone to make it safe for you, because obviously it hasn't been safe. Therefore, you develop these mechanisms to survive, your survival mechanisms. So there's someone, AI, me, or another therapist who makes it safe for you. And there's a few steps in there. It's not just saying to someone, oh, it's okay, just do it, because there's so much pain and everything, and it feels overwhelming. And what you actually do, you should connect with that inner child. And for her or him, the feelings are overwhelming and they never learned how to deal with them. So it's, you can read a book and then it says, oh, you have to go there. But then, what I just said, all the mechanisms would start to kick in. You can't really go further. And therefore, it really needed to have someone there to guide you, to take you by the hand, to give you the steps, to make it emotionally safe. That's what I'm talking about. Emotionally safe for that little one in you to come out and to start trusting and to learn, oh, this is my feelings, this is what I can do with it. This is, how I, live rather than survive.
Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Because I think also having somebody else there allows you to have a different perspective on what you're telling yourself, on how you have viewed that particular situation, because the other person hasn't got the emotional attachment to that situation, to what went on. So they'll view it probably in a more factual way, because we create stories, don't we? In the absence of facts, we create a story. And then that story feels so plausible and so believable that we believe it. And it becomes our truth. For me, I always think about those times where you're replaying something that happened in your past, and you have to be telling, somebody's telling a story about something that happened in the past that you were involved in, and you think, well, that's not how it happened, or at least that's not how I remember it. It's probably more likely what I have to say to myself. And I think for me, what I found, having somebody else external allowed me to see it from a different perspective, and therefore widen my view to allow me to think, was there a different way that I could look at it that might give me a different outcome, that might give me a different way of going. So how do people start working with you? How do they know they're ready?
Well, that's a good question, actually. When you're ready, well, when the pain is big enough, that's usually the case. When the pain is big enough, you've read all the books, you've listened to all the podcasts, and you're still in the same place, and you really, really, really want a change in your life. You might want to have a partner, you might want to get out of a relationship, you might want to move up the ladder at work, it doesn't work out. Loads of things. You want to have better friendships, better communication with your kids, anything, or with your spouse. And the pain is big enough. You tried it yourself, you tried that loop, you know it's not working. And you feel really like sort of miserable. You're stuck. You feel stuck. You know something has to happen. You tried it yourself in every different way. Usually people tried like a psychologist or other therapist. I'm not saying they're not good, because I can't say anything about someone else. Maybe the pain is not big enough. Maybe only talk therapy is not enough. Then you have the insights, but what then? And that's what usually is the place they come to me, and we start working. So it's really the pain that sort of drives them to come to me and say, now I want to change. I want my life to change. Yeah,
because I guess sometimes we get to that point, don't we, where because often we stay where we are because better the devil and we don't move, because what if we move and the grass isn't greener and it's not better. But I think there comes a point in our lives, isn't it, where staying where we are becomes so unbearable that we have to take the chance that making the move is going to be better than where we are. And I think for me, that I definitely went through that. It was like I stayed in that same place for far too long, because what if the unknown was worse? And I can honestly say, having now made the move, the unknown is not worse. It's significantly better. And I wish I'd moved a lot sooner. But there's some of the things we tell ourselves. So there are other things that are common that we tell ourselves that are silently delaying us from getting the transformation we deserve.
Yeah, like she doesn't know my story, and how can she help me? Or I think what I usually hear from people is, I know the situation, I know what my problem is, and obviously they do, but I know and I realize that it usually is only part of the real problem. They think they know, but they don't have the overview. And what you said earlier, they have an image of themselves, or they put on like maybe gray glasses, and they look at the world in that view, but it's not the real problem. The problem is bigger. There's so many things which are attached to it, and I or another therapist, you have an overview. You don't have what you said, the emotional detachment from it. So you can see the whole problem. So they usually tell me what they think it is, and often we find it's not all that. It's more. There's more to the story. And I'm not emotionally involved, obviously involved with my clients, but not in their story, so I can view what it is. And beside that, I'm very highly sensitive, so I can pick up on things inside someone as well, which helps the analytical side. So it's a combination of the two, and well, we get to the core issue, the core problem.
I love that, because I think that is often it, isn't it? Is that is very often we're busy fixing symptoms and we haven't got down to cause, and we think because we find another symptom, like put another plaster over that one, and then we keep going. But if we don't get all the way down to the cause, the symptoms are going to keep popping up no matter how hard we try and address those. And you do need somebody external to help you to see how all the symptoms help you pull back to the cause, so that you can then work with that, can't you, and make those changes and start to become your own best friend. I mean, I spent a lot of my life being my own worst enemy, and it's like ridiculous, because wherever I go. So if I don't learn to like myself, I'm going to be pretty miserable for the rest of my life. So how do I find a journey to like myself? Was kind of the start of mine. But it was that realization that if I didn't, I would be stuck with who I thought I was for the rest of my life, and that was a bit terrifying.
I can imagine. It's been a long one, then. It's been a long one. Yeah.
I think also I saw for me a big part of my drive for really understanding myself and trying to understand that root cause and then to make those changes was my little girl, because I realized if I didn't, inadvertently I'll be passing the same thing on to her, because I fixed it. And children don't just learn by what we say and do, they learn by how we are and who we are and how we show up in the world, don't they? So I think that can be a big driver for people making that change, can't it, when they've got children. And you mentioned earlier, it can impact your relationships, but all of your relationships, your work relationships, your home relationships, your relationships with children, with friends, with other parents. It can run the whole gauntlet, can't it?
Yeah. And what I find a lot of times that is the people come to me, my clients, those are the ones who sort of break that cycle. That's going on for like generations. So maybe it's a theme in like sort of now in those years or something, but those are the ones, because obviously we talk about their parents and their parents, grandparents and everything. And then you hear like it's a repeating cycle. Someone has to stop, because otherwise what you say, you'll give it to your children and they'll pass it on. Hey, you pass it on to your children and they pass it on as well. So someone needs to be able, because that's a word as well, you be able, and not everyone is able to make that step to make those changes.
Because it's a big change, isn't it? It's a big change to go back and say, I'm going to go and look at everything I've believed to be true up until this point. See how much I still believe. Because as human beings, we don't want to feel foolish, do we? And when we admit that we might have been carrying around an incorrect operating system, we can feel a little bit foolish that we didn't spot it sooner, can't we?
Yeah, foolish, but it's I think people, what I said, it's hard work as well.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time. Emotional work is a lot of hard work. Because of all the mechanisms, what I said earlier, going from pain to pleasure. You don't want to go to the pain. You think it's overwhelming. You have to learn something you didn't learn when you were little. So that's hard work as well. It needs a lot of training. That's because of how the mind works as well. It learns by repetition. So you need to repeat it, because that will become the new normal. I don't find really that people find it foolish, but what I do find is that they say, I wish I knew it earlier. Because a lot of times they have a clue And maybe if people start reading books and everything, the clue becomes better, bigger. But they find it sort of waste of time. And they wish they knew that when they were 20, and they had like maybe, I had someone the other day, she was 70. She said, I wish I knew that earlier, because then I could have chosen maybe another partner. Now she's 70. She's got a few years to go, but not like her whole life in front of her. So yeah, it's sort of waste of time. That sort of feeling. That's what I hear a lot from people.
Yeah, and I think, that's our most precious commodity, isn't it? It's the one thing that we can't buy more of.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, where choosing to spend it wisely is, I think, something that we think about. We probably think about it more as we get older, because we realise that the sand's down on that clock, and we can't turn it back over and start again. We've got to move forward, haven't we? We've got to keep going. And it reminds me of I think it was Mark Twain who said, you can't go back and change the beginning, but you start where you are and change the end. I guess that's the kind of that catalyst piece, isn't it, that says, if not today, then when? When do we say, actually, we want to make a change for us to be able to live our best life, our happiest life? And I guess working with people like yourself, that's what people are doing, isn't it? They're tapping into that. How do I actually start where I am and change my next chapter? Because if not, I'm going to keep repeating the mistakes. And it's painful when you keep banging your head against a wall, isn't it? And yet we can find ourselves stuck in those vicious cycles, can't we?
Yeah, and in the how. People always ask how, what do I need to do? And they really like to understand as well. So it's a sort of two-way thing. It's like the real insights, not the ones they thought it was, but the real insights, what is really going on, like the core pains. They've been driven by those core pains, the survival mechanisms and everything. Those real insights is really important. And then building a foundation. And then going from there. And the funny thing is, or it's not really funny, but the nice thing is that people tend to forget the negative as well over time. So all the things they've been through, and then once you've changed and everything, you can build up your life and maybe get a spouse and everything if you want. You still have a good life, a really good life. And then gladly, you tend to forget the negative. So it is a shame. I have sometimes those feelings like, oh, I wish I knew it earlier, or that it didn't happen and everything. But I'm still glad I'm here now. I know it now. I still have some years to go, and I can help people with it. So that's good for people to know. You tend to forget the negative over time.
I love that. And I've found that to be true for myself. I often say that if life's taught me anything, it's that everything in it is a lesson, a blessing, or both. So in those moments where I'm not feeling blessed, I look for the lesson, and the blessing wrapped in there. And I think it often only makes sense in the rearview mirror, doesn't it? It's like at the time you're going through it, you're like, what on earth?
Why?
And then you get to the other side and look back and go,
yeah.
That's what I needed to know. That's what I needed to learn, or that's why that particular thing was brought in. And so I guess it's learning to trust, isn't it, that actually things will work out. If we keep taking the next step, if we keep moving forward and looking at what is the step that I can take. Because I don't know if this resonates for you with the people that you work with, but sometimes I think one of the things that holds people back is because they can't see all the steps that they need to do. So they're like, well, I'll wait until the whole picture becomes clear and then I'll take a step. Whereas, I've found that life's a little bit like doing a jigsaw without the box. It's like you don't know what the picture is that you're going to be building. All you can do is keep finding the pieces that next fit together. And as you do, the picture becomes clearer and clearer. But that possibly could throw people into utter turmoil, couldn't it? That piece around going, I can't see exactly what it's going to end up like. I've just got to trust that if I keep taking the steps, that I'll get where I need to. What advice could you give people that if they're feeling like that, around how do they get themselves unstuck and come and work with somebody like you to have those steps and pull that picture into fruition for them?
Well, that it's first, you don't have to do it on your own. You don't have to do it alone. But it is really baby steps. And what I find is that people, they really want to take big steps because they've come to a point like, okay, I want to change. I'm here now. Just tell me what to do. And that's not the way it goes. Because the emotional safety, what I said earlier, that takes time to build. And that's the foundation you need to build. So it is really baby steps. It's not, the mind really wants, okay, that's the way we go. Okay, off we go. But that's not the way the feeling world and the wound and the inner child works. So that needs time. And they have to trust that if they take baby steps, they will get there. Maybe a bit longer than what they want, what the mind wants. And it is like if you take those baby steps every time, that in the end of the trajectory or wherever you do, it is a 180. So you've changed. And the thing is, it's easier for me sometimes to see that people change than they will find themselves, they will feel, because they're in those, the same thoughts and everything, and they can't really see it changing in their life. So that takes time as well. So it is a matter of, in a way, trusting the therapist that she knows what she's doing, he or she, that she takes you by the hand. And if you start doing the work, obviously there's no change without doing the work. So if you have assignments and things like that, do it, even if you can't really see it, because obviously if you could see it, you've changed it yourself. And you didn't, and that's no shame. That's not a fault, but that's the way it goes. So trust in every step you have to take, and then you will get there.
I love that, because we have blind spots for a reason, don't we? We're blind to them. Saying years ago, I went into a new organization, and I said to my team, if I do anything that's really annoying or irritating, really cheeses you off, even if it's really obvious, could you please tell me? Because it won't be my intention, but it might be my impact, because I can't see my own blind spots. And by the same token, are you happy if I share any blind spots I come across? Because again, I'm going to know that you're not doing it because it's really obvious, you're doing it because you can't see it. Because I think it just helps set that scene, doesn't it? And that you'll put in that safe space. So it's like, it's okay if we give people feedback. It's not about fault or blame. It's about saying, you might not have been able to see this.
No.
This might have been in your blind spot, but if we can bring it to the light, then actually you can understand it, and then you can work with it. You can decide what you're going to do next in that kind of piece in with what you do with that. So how do people work with you? How do people get in touch with you?
Well, they can find me in different ways. Obviously, the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, all under my own name. So it's not an easy name, but it's under my own name. Or via my website, Metamind Breakthrough. And we can have a free discovery call, and I can listen to you, and you can tell me what the story is and your problems and everything, and then we can work out a tailor-made program for you. I have different programs, and usually someone fits in one of those programs.
Fabulous. And who who's your ideal client? Who do you love working with that you know that you can absolutely help?
Absolutely help. Well, I help men, women, and couples. I don't have a specific age range because for me that doesn't matter. It's problem based. It's people who suffer from codependency, attachment or abandonment issues, narcissism abuse, relationship addiction, or a combination thereof. And that could be working out in business as well. So people usually don't sort of relate that, but codependency is a big thing in business as well. The people-pleasing people, trouble setting boundaries, saying no, or going for that promotion, things like that, or trouble managing their team. That's the way it works out in business and in personal. It's the things they want to get, well, a fulfilling relationship, they don't have any, or those patterns what they're stuck in. So people who in that space, that's what I really like working with.
Oh, fabulous. And obviously we'll make sure that those contact details and that are below. I could chat to you all day, but I'm conscious we're coming to a close and the end. If there were one last piece of advice that you could share with us, what would it be?
Well, it's maybe a bit of a sort of fluff one, but I'll explain it. What I would say is never leave your inner child in the hallway. So get in touch with your inner child. If there's a wound, try to solve it, get help, because that means the world to him or her, and that will change your life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And for me, one of my things, my little girl is the spitting image of me when I was the same age. So my inner child is running around externally. That really brings it home to me all of the time. That is like, okay, this is the bit we're trying to fix. And I love that whole don't leave them in the hallway and trust their judgment. You know, I think we're quick to dismiss children and what they have to say, and when we inadvertently invalidate their inner belief in kind of what they're doing. And what I'm trying to do with Scarlett is make sure I always validate her belief, which is like, you know, if that were to happen, if she had a nightmare, if that were to happen, I would be scared. I don't think that is happening, so we're okay. But it would be okay to feel like that, because that is how you would feel in that situation. Ingeborg, it's been an absolute delight. Thank you so very much for coming here to USA Global TV and Radio and sharing your wisdom and insight with us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. It was really lovely to be there and to share my story. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. And that's us for today. Thank you so much for everybody listening and watching. I hope you found it interesting and maybe given you some insight that you can change the rest of your life if you want to. Thank you again for joining us here on Authentic Achievements. And if you've got a story that you want to share, a lived experience that you believe is going to really help other people, then please do get in touch and either join us here on this show by going to usatv.com and booking a session, or come across to my platform, which is AuthenticAchievements.com, and see what we're doing there. Until next time, thank you all so much for listening and watching, and take care.